All right, Happy New Year, everyone. I want to kick things off with actually looking back to 2024 and discussing my 5 favorite films of the year. Now, I do have to preface and say that this is limited by what I saw. I am trying to watch as much as possible and will really make that a goal for 2025. But some of the critical darlings that are getting nominated for different awards, or some of the smaller indie films that are only in theaters maybe for a 2-week time, I'm just not watching every single thing. So it's very possible that my list would possibly change with what I watch, but I think overall we're still going to get a pretty good list. And with that, let's get into it. So starting off with number 5, this movie for a long time in the year I thought was going to be my pick for Best Animated Film of the Year because Pixar is back. I'm talking about Inside Out 2. This movie really let Pixar shine in terms of being as adventurous with its animation style, let the original emotions shine, as well as letting all of the new emotions also take center stage as well. And it was just a great breath of fresh air. It was a Herculean task to follow up from the original, and it's basically as good of a sequel as you can hope for. So with that, I give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. This next one is one that I go a little back and forth on because the first one really helps set the stage. So for 2.5 hours of this movie, you're just riding off of vibes on that sandworm, basically. I'm talking about Dune Part 2. And I think it really does show Denis Villeneuve at his best, showcasing his art house style on such a grand scale. If you had to critique his movies overall, and I think this is I'm thinking like Blade Runner 2049 in particular, the middle of the film starts to maybe feel a bit like a slog, and it feels like a lot to get through. But there's just so much good stuff. And the thing I really want to highlight too, why this movie really makes the list, is I value so much anything that is able to stand out in my mind. And this movie has 2 scenes. I'm talking about riding the sandworm, as well as that black and white gladiator type scene with Austin Butler. Phenomenal scenes. That's what gets it on the list. Dune Part 2, I think, is also fair. I think 8.5 out of 10. Coming in at number 3 is my actual pick for Best Animated Film of the Year. Sorry, Pixar, but this one goes to The Wild Robot. The Wild Robot takes, I think for the most part, it's not a perfect film, but for the most part, it allows for familial storytelling that will hit you in the feels. It brings the humor. And above all, the art style is absolutely gorgeous. And it comes in with a solid 9 out of 10. Now, the race for my top 2 films of the year were very, very close. So before we get to that, just a couple of other quick shout outs that I wanted to make. I'm going to start off with Best Superhero Movie of the Year, which was not a tight race considering how some of the other ones fared. I'm talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. Gave it a 7 out of 10. And I gave it a 7 out of 10 because outside of the opening scene, the first 20 minutes are bad. Genuinely pretty bad. I can dive into that more. But once Wolverine basically shows up, exponentially better film. Really highly enjoyable overall. I also wanted to do one other shout out, and that was my underrated film of the year, which is Furiosa, the follow-up prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. I'm also giving Furiosa a 7 out of 10 because it wasn't the best movie. I think it followed in the footsteps quite well in many ways and was still able to find its own unique voice and setting with the characters. Chris Hemsworth makes a phenomenal villain. I think Anya Taylor-Joy did a great job following up from what Charlize Theron did with the character of Furiosa. But a lot of the editing techniques that actually worked quite well in Fury Road just didn't translate as well in this movie, and it just didn't hit the same way. But I am still calling it an underrated movie because it was still a very good, solid movie. And it's a little bit sad to see that it flopped at the theater, because it is the type of film, the type of storytelling, the type of filmmaking that I like to support and I like to see succeed. So it's still one I hope people still go to watch. Now, in terms of runner-up, I really went back and forth on trying to find faults and find reasons why this movie shouldn't be my movie of the year. So let me just kind of start off with what it did very well. This came right in, rearing its head at the very end of the year. It was a Christmas Day release. The cast swung for the fences. And that's pretty normal for this director's style. Whether you think they succeeded every single time, that's kind of up to you, but I love how committed they were, and it's something that it makes it more memorable that way. So the cast is committed, and what I'm really talking about, if you haven't figured it out yet, is Nosferatu, the remake from the 1920s movie, the shout-out from SpongeBob. It's Robert Eggers. I think it's now his 4th movie that he's done, and what I feel like he's known for is realistically portraying a certain setting in a time period, and he just knocks it out of the ballpark with this one as well. The setting, the set design, the realistic lighting, all absolutely stand out, and Eggers' blocking of the scenes is phenomenal. The way he's able to take the more dialogue-heavy scenes and naturally infuse movement in the characters, and so you're able to see in a single shot all of their faces, all of their acting, all of their dialogue. It's so good. It almost looks like artwork in many ways. And that's also leading into kind of the other biggest compliment. This movie should win Best Cinematography of the Year, hands down. Absolutely jaw-dropping in terms of, I wanted to pause the movie and just go, wow, that is insane. And in terms of now in 2025, now kind of understanding a lot more filmmaking techniques and understanding how much we're able to incorporate visual elements, and seeing directors and filmmakers take the balance of let's use visuals to the best of their capability and kind of make them invisible in many ways, but also let the audience feel like, hey, I'm actually watching something real, and using stuff like filmed on location and using more real elements. There are still a couple of shots where I look at in Nosferatu and I have no idea how they actually captured what they did. And that blows my mind. I do have to say, though, it's not a jump scare horror movie. The way I would compare this is it really kind of almost fills you with dread. It's that dreading sense. The comparison I would give it is, I would ask you how you felt during Hereditary. If you handled Hereditary, if you loved Hereditary, you should go to the theater right now and go watch Nosferatu. If that was not your style of movie, you might be grossed out by Nosferatu. It's a bit much, it's not for the faint of heart, but it is part of the art, I would say. So overall, easily a solid 9 out of 10 and my runner-up of the year. So then really, what makes my film of the year kind of at the top and above Nosferatu? Kind of say is vibes. It's kind of just the feeling of like, wow, like I'm just watching a very enjoyable movie. It's one that you're able to root for the underdog, under ape in this case, ooh. But also be challenged with some complex thinking and some complex storytelling ideas. It's just a really well-made movie overall. I'm talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And what makes me so happy about this movie is the fact that I really was actually pretty hesitant going in. I think the previous 3 films with Andy Serkis and his Caesar character was one of the most underrated trilogies of all time. I think Fox did a fantastic job with those 3 movies. And the fact that there's now this 6-year gap between the 3rd one and finishing up Caesar's arc to now continuing the series always is going to make me a little bit hesitant. But boy, did they really show how you can infuse some new ideas, some new concepts, and really change stuff up while keeping the same heart of the movie, they did a great job. The visuals are outstanding. You're going to root for a lot of characters, and you're going to just be fully immersed and invested in the film. And it really actually makes a case for the best in the series. So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, 9 out of 10, and my top pick for a favorite film of 2024. Hopefully you got a lot of ideas coming for 2025, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. See ya.